In the 1800s, physiologists conducted a variety of animal studies. Let's check some of those out now. Jean-Pierre Flourens developed a technique in the early 1800s that would prove very useful to the study of the mind. He was a French physiologist, and his work was the enemy of phrenology. The results of his studies provided evidence that disproved or poked holes in the ideas, the basic premise of phrenology. Flourens agreed that different parts of the brain have different functions, but Flourens, using his brand new state-of-the-art technique, was able to show that the functions proposed by phrenology were not quite right. He used the method of ablation. He surgically damaged brain tissue in rabbits and pigeons and observed the effects. When the cerebrum was damaged, the animal struggled with perception. It was difficult for the animal to see. It would run into things. It was difficult for the animal to hear. He would blast different sounds. The animals with cerebrum damage had difficulty hearing those sounds. When the cerebellum was damaged, movement was a problem. Not only was it difficult to walk, but simply standing still was a challenge for the animals. When the brain stem was damaged, as you can imagine, the animal died. Decades later, Pierre Paul Broca studied the brain of one of his patients who had motor aphasia. This patient was unable to speak. The only word this patient could say was tan, which is why the patient was named Tan. It wasn't his real name. The interesting thing is Tan could comprehend speech. You could speak to Tan and he would understand what you were saying, but he did not have the ability to form words and push those words out of his mouth so that you can hear them. After a natural death, Broca did an autopsy on Tan's brain and found significant brain damage. The brain you see here on the screen is Tan's brain. It is an image of Tan's brain. Broca concluded that the ability to produce speech is located in the area of the brain that experienced the most amount of damage. This area is now known as Broca's area. François Magendé was a French physiologist who worked primarily with puppies. What did he do to these puppies? He cut different parts of their spinal cords and watched what would happen. True story. When he cut the dorsal posterior root, it's a specific part of the spinal cord. When he cut the dorsal root, the puppies could move their legs, but when you pinched the puppy didn't respond. The puppy couldn't feel a pinch. When Magendé cut the other root, the ventral, the anterior root, the puppies couldn't move their legs anymore, but they squealed in pain when he pinched them. This observation led him to conclude that these two different roots were responsible for sending two different types of information to and from the brain. The dorsal root is the sender of sensory information, the ability to feel. So when he cut the dorsal root, the puppies couldn't feel the pinch. The ventral, the anterior root, is primarily responsible for movement, because when he cut that area of the spinal cord, the puppies could no longer move their legs. Today we call this principle in physiology the Bell-Magendé law. One of the most famous physiologists of all time, especially at this particular time in history, is Hermann von Helmholtz. He was a German physician and physicist. Many of his ideas, you can see, have a very strong foundation in the natural sciences. He researched sensation and perception, seeing, hearing, feeling. He also taught Wundt, the father of experimental psychology. It is from Helmholtz that Wundt learned many of the most basic techniques of the lab. One of the things Helmholtz studied was nerve impulse speed. He wanted to know how long does it take an impulse to go from your brain to, say, your toes. So he conducted one of the first reaction time studies in psychology to try to determine nerve impulse speed in both frogs and in humans. He tested frog muscles and gathered rates of about 300 meters per second, 90 feet per second. That's fast. When he tested humans, he found that the rates were twice that, 180 feet per second. That's equally impressive. He also studied visual perception and invented the ophthalmoscope. Along with James Maxwell, he found that they could create any color by mixing red, green, and blue, the three primary colors. They concluded that humans must have some way of recognizing these three primary colors. They created what is called the trichromatic theory of vision. They were the first to identify that our eyes have special receptors meant for these three primary colors. A man by the name of Thomas Young also made a similar discovery at about the same time. If you remember, we call this a multiple or a multiple event. Today, we know the theory as the Young-Helmholtz trichromatic theory of vision. But if you remember, a man by the name of James Maxwell actually helped Helmholtz create the initial theory. The co-founder, the co-author, the co-developer gets no credit. It is the Young-Helmholtz, not the Maxwell-Helmholtz theory. In the late 1800s, two German physicians, Gustav Fritz and Edward Hitzig, used electricity to map brain functions. In the late 1800s, the use of electricity in these animal studies became more refined. Two German physicians, Gustav Fritz and Edward Hitzig, used electricity to map brain functions, and their work was the first experimental evidence that the motor cortex is responsible for voluntary movement. That area of the brain is about right here. They restrained live dogs, cut away their skulls to expose their brains, and stimulated different parts of the cerebrum using batteries. When they touched one part of the motor cortex, the feet moved. When they touched another part, the tail moved. Another part, the tongue moved. They conducted these experiments on a variety of dogs of different ages and different breeds. They concluded that different parts of the motor cortex are associated with specific parts of the body. On the screen, you see an example of this in humans. Fritz and Hitzig studied animal brains. I wanted to show you an example of what they were trying to do. The information you see here comes decades later when we begin to experiment with human brains.